Heroes of the City of Man, pages 158 to 167. The Image of His Father, books 1 through 4. One of the striking structural features of the Odyssey is that the title character does not appear in the first 4 books. He is stranded on the island of Ogygia with Calypso, a bewitching nymph and lustrous goddess, who holds him while he continually pines to return to his wife and home. Calypso is related to the Greek verb kaluptein, to hide, and Odysseus begins the epic hidden in several senses. He is hidden from the reader while attention is focused on the situation in Ithaca, an example of the delayed identification motif. He is hidden from Penelope and Telemachus, who do not even know if he is alive. More symbolically, he is hidden in the sense that he is not fulfilling the heroic demand to perform deeds that bring renown. So long as the suitors run riot in his house, Odysseus is losing reputation as well as material wealth. To be a hero, he must renounce marriage to Calypso and unveil himself in an avenging apocalypse. Though Odysseus is absent from the story, his predicament is mirrored in his sons. This is evident from the structure of books 1 through 4, and the Telemachy or Telemacheia. Book 1 begins with an assembly of the gods on Olympus, and a similar scene is found at the beginning of Book 5. The repetition of this scene in Book 5 announces, we're starting over again from the beginning. Both divine assemblies, moreover, discuss the situation of Odysseus, and both end with a god being sent to initiate a resolution to the crisis. Athena is sent off in Book 1 to encourage Telemachus, and Hermes goes in Book 5 to tell Calypso she must release Odysseus. Within Books 1 through 4, we can discern a concentric or ring arrangement with sections marked off by geographic changes. Book 1, Telemachus and suitors in Ithaca. Books 2 through 3, Telemachus and Pylos in Sparta. Book 4, suitors in Ithaca plot Telemachus' death. Thus the Telemachy leaves Telemachus in the same situation as his father. He is gone from home, and all ways of return are threatened by the suitors. When she discovers that Telemachus is gone, Penelope discerns the similarity of father and son. Why bent on rambling over the face of the earth, a darling only son, your father's worlds away, God's own Odysseus, dead in some strange land? Book 1 and the first portion of Book 2 also have a concentric arrangement. A. Assembly on Olympus. B. Athena and Telemachus. B. Telemachus and Penelope. A. Assembly in Ithaca. This structure invites us to compare the matching sections, A with A and B with B. Let's begin with the assembly on Olympus. Poseidon, who has manipulated Odysseus' absence, is himself absent from Olympus on a business trip to Ethiopia. Athena, Odysseus' patron, seizes the opportunity to ask Zeus to help Odysseus get home. Her request interrupts Zeus's ruminations on the nostos of another hero of Troy, Agamemnon. The father of men and gods was first to speak. Sorely troubled, remembering handsome Aegisthus, the man Agamemnon's son, renowned Orestes, killed. Recalling Aegisthus, Zeus harangued the immortal powers. Ah, how shameless the way these mortals blame the gods. From us alone they say come all their miseries, yes, but they themselves with their own reckless ways compound their pains beyond their proper share. Look at Aegisthus now. Above and beyond his share he stole Atreides' wife. He murdered the warlord coming home from Troy, though he knew it meant his own total ruin. Far in advance we told him so ourselves, dispatching the guide, the giant killer Hermes. Don't murder the man, he said, don't court his wife. Beware, revenge will come from Orestes, Agamemnon's son. That day he comes of age and longs for his native land, so Hermes warned, with all the goodwill in the world. But would Aegisthus' hardened heart give way? Now he pays the price, all at a single stroke. Zeus espouses an interesting theology, complaining that mortals blame the gods for the troubles they bring upon themselves. This stands in some tension with Achilles' theology of the 2 jars at the end of the Iliad. More important here, however, is the example that Zeus refers to Aegisthus brought punishment upon himself by ignoring the warnings of Hermes, taking Agamemnon's wife, Clytemnestra, while Agamemnon was fighting at Troy, and then killing Agamemnon on his return. Agamemnon's son Orestes took vengeance in turn by killing his mother. That Agamemnon's wife was taken as just, for he had seized Achilles' war bride at the beginning of the Iliad. In the context of the Odyssey, the return story of Agamemnon, which is told several times at considerable length, is a warning tale for the main characters. The fact that Athena's request comes in the midst of Zeus's ruminations on Agamemnon indicates that his nostos is somehow parallel to Odysseus's. We can fit the main characters of the Odyssey into the plot of Agamemnon's return. Clytemnestra equals Penelope, Aegisthus equals the suitors, Agamemnon equals Odysseus, and Orestes equals Telemachus. By recalling this story, Zeus raises a critical question concerning Odysseus's nostos. Will Penelope remain faithful to Odysseus, or will she buy a Clytemnestra who beds down with one of the suitors? Will Odysseus be betrayed upon his return to Agamemnon, as Agamemnon was? Will Telemachus, the young son of Odysseus, prove himself as courageous or as Orestes, who killed his own mother to avenge his father's murder? The Agamemnon story is an indicator of the tragic potential of the initial situation in Ithaca. Odysseus could end as badly as Agamemnon. Agamemnon's story is an appropriate warning, then, to Odysseus. This is the way Agamemnon himself uses his story when he speaks to Odysseus in the underworld in Book 11. Though Agamemnon commends Penelope's faithfulness, he is understandably suspicious of wives in general and warns Odysseus not to stumble into a trap. If he wants to achieve his nostos safely, he must use his nous, every last stragomem of metis, and he must meet the dolos of women with superior dolos. We know from opening lines of the poem that Odysseus hardly needs this advice. He trusts no one, and all his ways are shrewd. The story of Agamemnon is told to Telemachus several times in the Telemachi. Telemachus asks about this event while visiting Nestor in Book 3, and is given a typically long-winded account. Menelaus later gives a vivid account of how Aegisthus welcomed Agamemnon home, feasted him well, and then cut him down as a man cuts down some ox at the trough, which foreshadows the fate of the band of Aegisthus who are besieging Penelope. When Telemachus hears the story from Nestor, he identifies himself with Orestes. Ah, Nestor, son of Neleus, Achaea's pride and glory, what a stroke of revenge that was! All Achaeans will spread Orestes' fame across the world, a song for those to come. If only the gods would arm me in such power, I'd take revenge on the lawless, brazen suitors, riding roughshod over me, plotting reckless outrage. Telemachus' enthusiasm for Orestes' violence makes it easy to miss the radical difference between the two young men. Orestes was avenging a father who had been murdered, but the suitors have not killed Odysseus. Telemachus exaggerates the tragedy of his situation when he compares it to Orestes'. Or does he? I want to suggest that the situations of Telemachus and Orestes are closer than they appear at first. This is true for several reasons. First, the suitors are acting as if Odysseus were dead, lounging around his house and treating his wife as a widow. There's not much difference between killing Odysseus and acting as if he were already dead. More is going on here, though. As Telemachus says, the suitors are busy devouring his house. And, as noted above, the food image is significant. The suitors are abusing the hospitality offered by Penelope and Telemachus, eating them out of house and home. Elsewhere, Telemachus says, "They bleed my household white." And in Homer, white is a color of dead bones. The imagery suggests that the suitors are trying to kill the house of Odysseus. Property and person are not, in Telemachus' mind, sharply distinct. An attack on a man's house and property is an attack on him. This is especially true in the heroic world, in which possessions constitute part of the glory of the hero's reputation. The prominence of gift-giving also highlights the intensity of the suitor's attack. In heroic Greece, rulers were not elected, and political power was not always passed from father to son. In this semi-feudal system, a prince gained the support and loyalty of powerful nobles by lavishing gifts of land and other wealth on them. A great house like Odysseus's would produce goods to be distributed to the household's advantage, winning friends and influencing people. Political power flowed to those who used their wealth to establish ties of loyalty and dependence. We still see an element of this even in modern politics. Democratic politicians in the U.S. have the unquestioned support of older Americans because they support Social Security programs that give tax funds to senior citizens. Given the political importance of gift-giving in heroic Greece, the plan of the suitors becomes clearer. By devouring Odysseus' substance, they are eroding the basis of his power. Even if he does return, he will have a hard time maintaining the support of the nobility if he cannot provide them with rich gifts. Further, he will not be able to pass on a large enough inheritance for Telemachus to hold power. Thus, as we shall see below, it is important that he not return from Troy empty-handed. Devouring the house, thus, has both personal and political dimensions. It is an attack on Odysseus himself and his reputation, and it is a coup, an attempt to unseat the house of Odysseus from its chief position in Ithaca. Telemachus, it seems, has good reason to use Orestes as a model. Vengeance against the suitors will be, as the divine counsel indicates, divine vengeance. As such, it will be appropriate to the crime. The suitors have violated the rules of hospitality of which Zeus is the defender, and Zeus will hold them to account. They have been feasting on another man's wealth, and they will be destroyed in a feast of slaughter. They have been hoping for a wedding celebration, but they will have only a blood wedding. Yet Telemachus is simply not up to the job. This is brought out by the human assembly, which is planned at the end of Book 1 and takes place in Book 2. If the divine council indicates the seriousness of the crisis in Ithaca, the human council emphasizes that only Odysseus can restore order. In several ways, Telemachus' conduct gives hope that he is ready to take an active role in saving his house. He observes the rules of hospitality in his treatment of the visiting Athena. The action begins with Telemachus welcoming a stranger to the house, and the epic will climax with the appearance of another disguised stranger, Odysseus himself. When Penelope asks the bard not to sing of Troy, Telemachus sharply rebukes her and asserts his control over the house. Why fault the bard if he sings the Argives' hard fate? Courage, mother, harden your heart and listen. So, mother, go back to your quarters, tend to your own tasks, the distaff and the loom, and keep the women working hard as well. As for giving orders, men will see to that, but I, most of all, I hold the reins of power in this house. When the suitors raise their lustful howl of protest, Telemachus also takes him in hand. You suitors who plague my mother, you insolent overweening, you must leave my palace. Telemachus seems to be coming of age, ready to take command. When the assembly meets the next day, however, he seems a younger, smaller man. His angry speech ends in despair. But now look, you load my heart with grief. There's nothing I can do. And dashing the scepter to the ground, he bursts into tears. He is indeed a boy who takes his stand among the gathered men. Books 2 through 3 describe his mentoring into the heroic life that prepares him to later stand at his father's side. The public reason for the trip is to find information about Odysseus from those who might have seen him. But his journey also initiates him into the world of men. As Athena tells him, you must not cling to your boyhood any longer. In this sense, the first books of the Odyssey reflect certain rites of passage in Greek and other societies, and Athena is a goddess that enables Telemachus to cross the threshold to a new stage of life. Prior to a certain age, boys in many societies are almost entirely surrounded by women, mothers, maids, nurses. At adolescence, they are made members of male society through an initiation ritual that often has 3 stages. Boys are first physically separated from their mothers. For a time, they are kept in an in-between place where they must endure various trials and where they can learn certain skills and the lore of the tribe. Finally, they are returned to the community, but now they are attached to the society of men. Telemachus' experience goes through these stages. He's physically separated from his mother when he journeys, without her knowledge, to Pylos and Sparta. He remains in those places for a time, learning about the Trojan War from some of its warriors. When he returns to Ithaca in Book 15, he's no longer a boy, but a man, ready to assist his father in the defense of his house and kingdom. Given the parallels between Odysseus and Telemachus, moreover, it is possible to see Odysseus's adventures as a similar initiation, a preparation for his heroic return. Telemachus has never seen a true heroic society in operation, which is to say, he has never seen a proper feast. Feasts picture how society should be ordered. The host offers a portion of meat to the gods, and the guests, arranged according to rank, receive gifts from the host and share a common meal. Right relations with the gods and among men are symbolized and therefore maintained by the feast. A disordered society cannot celebrate a proper feast. The host will not offer thanks to the gods. The guests will not know their rankings, and they will compete for a share of food rather than sharing. Telemachus has seen only the disordered gluttony of the suitors, who slaughter and eat without offering sacrifices to the gods, and who prey on another man's house. To correct these defects in his education, Athena suggests that he take a voyage to visit some of his father's comrades. This will expose him to the ways of heroic life and show him how to worship the gods and how to feast. This is why Homer describes the sacrifices that Nestor offers at Pylos in such great detail, and why it is fitting that Telemachus arrive in Sparta just in time for a wedding. During his journey too, Telemachus learns about his peculiar place in Ithacan society. Pisistratus, the son of Nestor, has grown up in the civilized court of his father and knows how to conduct himself. By observing and imitating his behavior, Telemachus begins to learn what it means to be the son of Odysseus. Telemachus has never known his father, but he learns about him through the exploits that are recounted in Sparta. These stories anticipate the hidden hero's character and foreshadow, in some detail, Odysseus's return. Helen tells how. Scarring his own body with mortifying strokes, throwing filthy rags on his back like any slave, Odysseus slipped into the enemy city, roamed its streets, all disguised, a totally different man, a beggar, hardly the figure he cut among Achaea's ships. That's how Odysseus infiltrated Troy, and no one knew him at all. I alone spotted him for the man he was. When Odysseus later comes to Ithaca in the guise of a beggar, he is simply up to his old tricks. His victory over the suitors is a continuation of his victory at Troy, also won by cunning. The last major character in the initial books is Penelope. Like Telemachus and Odysseus, she has her rough seas to navigate, and success requires skill and courage. Structurally, by including successive scenes involving first Telemachus and Athena, and then Telemachus and Penelope, Book 1 brings out a comparison with Athena. Penelope is a human Athena who has been able to put off the suitors with a clever ploy. She told them that she would make a choice among the suitors once she finished a funeral shroud for Laertes. Day after day she wove the shroud, but at night she undid the work so that it was never finished. This trick is significant on several levels. The loom is typically a woman's instrument. Men employ swords and spears while women work on the loom. Penelope's trick is a typically feminine deception, using the one weapon she has in her armory. Weaving, moreover, is often an image of fate and destiny. The world is pictured in some passages of Scripture as a garment, and in pagan literature the Fates weave the mantle of the world. In the Iliad we see Helen weaving a robe that pictures scenes of the Trojan War, and Penelope is quite literally weaving the fate of the suitors, for by delaying her decision, she is leaving time for Odysseus to weave a web to entrap the suitors. Appropriately, she is working on a funeral shroud rather than the wedding veil that the suitors hope for. Ironically, the suitors have forced her to finish the web, sealing their own fate. Like her husband, she is a woman of twists and turns, whose very name is connected with the cunning art of weaving, for the Greek word pene means wolf or web. All this is hopeful, but Zeus's recounting of the Agamemnon story raises a question of Penelope's faithfulness to Odysseus. Will she turn out to be a Clytemnestra? The answer of the epic is not as straightforward as it might seem. Like Clytemnestra, Penelope is a woman who employs deceits. Both of them weave designs to entrap and eventually destroy men. Penelope's attitude toward the suitors is, moreover, complicated. The trick of the web is ambiguous, for it not only gives Odysseus time to get home, but also extends the suitors' courting. If Penelope had made a public announcement that she would not remarry, the suitors would go home. So long as she weaves, she gives encouragement to their hope, and she continues to receive their attention. At the end of the epic, she will reveal in several ways that she found some pleasure in the suitors, and that she came close to becoming, if not a Clytemnestra, at least a Helen. Yet, as Charles Siegel has put it, Penelope in the final analysis is using house-preserving dolos, which leads to glory and fame, while Clytemnestra's house-destroying dolos led to shame. When Penelope first appears, she stands beside a pillar that holds up the roof of the house. This is not merely a bit of descriptive color, but symbolizes what kind of woman Penelope is. Like the pillar, she keeps her husband's house from collapsing. At the end of Book 4, the scene is set for a replay or a reversal of Agamemnon's Nostos. Odysseus' palace is filled with prospective Aegisthus. Penelope uses trickery, though so far she uses it to remain faithful to her husband, rather than to betray him. Telemachus is beginning to look like an Orestes in the making. Only the new Agamemnon is missing. Will he step into a trap, or will he set one?